Call our regular meeting to council to order for Tuesday, September 5th. Take the approval of the agenda, please. Councilor Norbury.
That the September 5th, 2023 regular council meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
Seconder, Councilor Dussault. All in favor? Carried. Adoption of minutes for August 8th, 2023 regular council meeting minutes. Take the recommendation, please. Councilor Dussault.
That the August 8th, 2023 regular council meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Seconder, Councilor Hoffman. All in favor? Carried. Any business arising for the minutes, council? Okay, I got one. On page 11, 9.3, just says, Councilor Dussault declared a conflict of interest as she's a member of the Alliance. She's actually on the executive. She's a board member, not just a member. Okay. Any other business arising from council? Anything from staff?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Consent agenda. Take the recommendation, please. Councilor Norbury.
That all items in the September 5th, 2023 consent agenda be moved for information.
Seconder. Councilor Clickash. All in favor? Carried. Are there any items that council would like to bring forward for discussion? Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. 7.5, Lions Club of Tumbler Ridge for discussion.
Okay. Seconder. Councilor Noxana. Okay. Okay, call the question. All in favor? Carried. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. So in front of us, we have a letter from the Lions Club of Tumbler Ridge asking for support for their Meals on Wheel program. I myself reached out to Mr. Rhymes about what they need, but I think it'd be appropriate for us to support the Meals on Wheels program. I know there's a lot of people that are in need, and these people are able to help those who are not able to help themselves. So I would like to see us support them, but we first need to find out what they need, like how much money they actually need. So yeah, before I make a motion, I'll see what the feelings of council are before I make a motion, but I think we should be supporting the Lions Club.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll make a couple comments. One, to me, they'd have to come in and fill out for grant and aid. But this is also a government agency that supports Meals on Wheels. I'm curious they've actually reached out to that organization. And my bad, I meant to look it up to see what government agency Meals on Wheels is under. But I know other communities definitely do Meals on Wheels, and I believe there is government support or an agency support, whether it's Salvation Army or that. And I think we need to make sure that we go through those angles as well. Mr. Woodward, would you know Meals on Wheels, what agency they would be under? Because it's across Canada they offer Meals on Wheels.
I'm not familiar enough with the Meals on Wheels. I do know that there are organizations that do support it. Right.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Julik?
I agree with both of you, and I guess what I would like to do is say, if we could get staff to possibly reach out and ask how our staff could assist them in making these next steps. Sometimes with the volunteer organizations, they're stretched pretty thin. So I agree with you, like figuring out what we have there and seeing if we have a staff member, if it would be possible for a staff member to assist Mr. Rhymes with taking those next steps.
Okay. Councillor Noxana?
I did a bit of research on the program and could only find that it's supported through donations. That doesn't mean that there isn't other support out there. Not a clue. I just did a bit of Googling earlier this afternoon. I'm all in favor of helping them, whether it's a grant and aid program here with the district or maybe putting them in touch with our grant writer to see if there's anything our district grant writer can do to help them. But it's definitely a program that I'd like to see continue in our community.
Yep, totally agree with you. Okay, somebody want to make a motion? Maybe I think maybe we should just be directing staff to contact them and go through that process. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. I'll make the motion for staff to reach out to the Lions Club of Tumbler Ridge about the Meals on Wheels program and how we can assist them.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Noxana. Discussion. Okay, call the question. All in favor? Carried. If somebody could just grab Councillor Dussault, please.
Maybe they can tell them how to spell your last name.
Okay. Is there anything else council like to bring forward? Councillor Noxana.
7.4.
Okay. Seconder. Councillor Jilek. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Noxana.
There's two different options here for a grant for the museum. 7.3.
Okay, so is there any more discussion on 7.4? Okay. 7.3 for discussion, seconder. Councillor Noberry, all in favor? Carried.
Sorry about that.
Okay, Councillor Noxana?
Two different grant options for the museum, and I'm wondering if, because one of their concerns was having the staff time available to fill out grant applications and follow up. Is there a way that we can also put them in touch with our grant writer to see if she's available to help or they're available to help?
Yeah, so that was my idea, and that's why I put it back into the agenda to make sure we could have a discussion. When we did go to Victoria, that was concern brought up by the museum is capacity. Lots of grants out there, but the capacity to try and write them for the government. So again, I think the same thing is we direct staff to contact them, and the same thing in that motion, I think we got to direct staff that they are to assist if that's what this council wants them to do. Because I know maybe Councillor Dussault can speak to it as well, being the liaison there, but capacity for them to fill out grants is they're handcuffed to it, is what it sounded like at the in Victoria. Councillor Dussault?
Yes, we've had many discussions on these grants, and one they do qualify for, but the other one they do not. They have had these options put in front of them many times over and over, and finding somebody to do the grants, one, they don't have. So yes, we need to find somebody who can do that one grant for them, but the one they do not qualify for. So they are looking at other options, but so far I don't think they have found anything else.
Okay. Okay, any more discussion? Somebody want to put a motion on the floor? Councillor Noxana?
I'd like to make a motion to have staff reach out to see how we can best assist them to be successful in this grant application process.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Clickash. Discussion on the motion. Call the question, all in favor? Carried. So that is another thing, and that was one of the things we talked about in Victoria is actually the government supplying some staff to our Dinosaur Discovery Gallery to assist in grant writing, and I think that'll be something that we have to push again at the UBCM. Okay, is there anything else the council like to bring forward? Okay. Moving on to new business, 9.1, temporary commercial use permit, TCUP-2301. Report dated September 5th, 2023, from the Director of Corporate Services regarding temporary commercial use permit TCUP-2301. Recommendation. Councilor Noberry.
That council approves the issuance of a temporary use permit number TCUP 2301 to Caitlin Garden, owner of Rocky Mountain Dance Company, for the property legally described as Lot 2 BCS 1143, District Lot 3164, Civic Address D107 Commercial Park, and that council directs staff to file notice of the permit with the Land Title Office.
Okay, I'll second that. Discussion on the recommendation. Okay, call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay, 9.2, naming rights proposal, Tumbler Ridge Fairgrounds Facility. Report dated September 5th from the Deputy Corporate Officer regarding naming rights proposal, Tumbler Ridge Fairgrounds Facility. Recommendation. Councillor Julik.
That council approves the naming rights proposal submitted by Canuma Resources to name the Tumbler Ridge Fairgrounds facility Tumbler Ridge Fairgrounds, supported by Canuma Resources, and that council approves the applicant's preferred layout for the fairgrounds main entrance signage, the second option presented in the proposal.
Okay, seconder. I'll second that. Discussion. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just looking at the proposal with the, just talking about the pictures, and I know which one they prefer. Kind of prefer the first one, just because Canumo's emblem is with Canumo as opposed to sort of a town thing, but it's not a, this is not something that I would, this is not a rock I'm dying on, but just looking at it, I think I would prefer that option one myself.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, I guess my question is going to be back to staff in regards to our sign policy. And does this fit within our sign policy in regards to our rebranding with their logo being at the top and not down by their name? Mr. Woodward?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I'm not aware of the sign policy. What's that? I can't hear you from here.
It's in the agenda.
Oh, right.
My job to read it all.
Sorry, yeah. What page is it on? 31.
So I've read through some of it, but we also have a rebranding that the District of Tumbler Ridge went through. And I just want to make sure that this fits our rebranding that we've been doing.
Yeah, I've read that all. I didn't think that. Sorry, excuse me, Mr. Mayor. So, sorry, what's the question then?
So we did a rebranding here in regards to the UNESCO Global Geopark coming to Tumbler Ridge. All our signage was changed and stuff like that. And I want to make sure it fits within that branding documentation. Councillor Hoffman brought up a good point in regards to it.
Okay.
And I just want to make sure it fits within our branding, that we're not going against what the branding was meant to do. I mean, I look at the two signs, Councillor Hoffman brought it up in regards to the top one compared to the lower one. And I just want to make sure that has nothing to do with our the rebranding that the district went through.
Right, okay. Director of Economic Development we could probably answer some of that question.
So thanks, Mayor and Council. In the naming rights policy, it's a little bit different than the standards we would use for geopark and district, like trailhead signs and things like that. So there is a line in the naming rights policy that says logos will not be permitted on any signage relating to naming rights, save and except for the applicant's logo. So if council's of the flavor that they should keep their logo as one thing at the bottom, then I think that's fair. The font used on the sign is the Tumbler Ridge font. Transparency, I designed that sign for them through my great freelance business. So yeah, I do try to keep everything as uniform as we can, even when it comes to things like naming rights.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Julik.
Ms. Olson's actually answered my question, sorry, but because for me, if our EDO is comfortable with the signage the way it is, I'm comfortable to go ahead with number 2. I can't honestly tell you why I like number 2 over number 1, but I do, and if that's the one that's preferred by Canuma, I'm okay to go with that.
Okay. Okay, any more discussion? Okay, call the question, all in favor? Carried. Okay, 9.2, or 9.3, sorry. Facility Use Conduct Policy, Admin 48. Report dated September 5th, 2023, from the Deputy Corporate Officer regarding Admin 48 Facility Use Conduct Policy. Recommendations. Councillor Norbury.
That council adopts the Admin 48 Facility Use Conduct Policy as presented.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Julik, any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Sorry, Councillor Cash. Opposed? Carried. Second recommendation. Councillor Hoffman. for you.
That council repeals the Admin 47 aquatic patron discipline policy.
Seconder, Councillor Noxana. Discussion? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Carried. Recommendation number 3. Councillor Norbury.
The council repeals the Admin 22 suspension of privileges policy.
Seconder, Councillor Julik. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Recommendation number 4. Councillor Hoffman.
That council repeals the Admin 49 inline skates, skateboards, and scooters policy.
Seconder, Councillor Clickash. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. 9.4, approved exempt events policy, Admin 38. Report dated September 5th, 2023, from the Director of Corporate Services, seeking the adoption of the approved exempt events policy amendments. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. I'm going to recuse myself as I have a monetary interest in the library, and we are discussing some budgetary items for the library. So, step out.
Thank you. Councillor Dussault. Hang on one second there. There you go.
Should I be recusing myself because the Lions are also on this list?
I can't tell you when to excuse yourself. That's up to you.
Okay, I will excuse myself then.
Okay. Councillor Julik.
That council approves amendments to the approved exempt events policy, Admin 38, and adopts the policy as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Clickash. Discussion? My only questions would be to staff, and that is, have we reached out to the Tumbler Lions Club in regards to the flea market, that they no longer plan on doing it, and to the Forever Young Society in regards to the craft fair, that they no longer plan on doing that? My understanding was when the pandemic was here, a lot of that stuff was taken off. I'm just curious now that the pandemic is eased at this point, if we've reached out those organizations before they are removed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we have. We've contacted them, and yes, they want them removed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. If somebody can get Councillor Dussault and somebody can get Councillor Norbury, please. Okay, on to 9.5, recruitment policy, HR 7. Report dated September 5th, 2023, from the Director of Corporate Services, seeking the adoption of the recruitment HR 7 policy amendments. Recommendation. Councillor Dussault.
That council adopts the Human Resources Recruitment Policy, HR 7, as amended.
Seconder. Councillor Clickash. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. 9.6, comprehensive land development plan for future residential development. Report dated September 5th from the Director of Economic and Community Development regarding comprehensive land development plan for future residential development. Recommendation. Councillor Hoffman.
That council receives this report for discussion.
Seconder. Councillor Clickash. All in favor? Carried. Does anybody have anything to discuss or have questions? Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I found this little section quite interesting, actually. The questions that I have is really related to the thought that we're looking for larger properties being developed. And the fact that as a cost to build, why are we doing this right now? Like, I don't see how this is a valuable thing to do at this time, given the per square footage cost to build. There's no economic rationale to build the development of single-family homes in this town. I would think that if we were going to do this, it would be for higher density things as a possibility, because we just can't, no individual builder, no developer is going to be looking to subdivision develop at this time. So I understand there's a grant. I'm not sure what it can be used for, but for larger lots behind the saddle, I can't remember what it's called.
Saddle
Thank you.
Club, yep.
I don't see the value of doing that at this point in time. But I look forward to hearing what the rest of council thinks about this.
Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. So I guess to fill in some of the councillors on the history behind at least the Saddle Club property, and I guess the district's efforts in land development. A few years ago, maybe Mayor Kakalka could correct me, but there was a survey sent out. A survey that asked a lot of different questions about people's interests about different types of property around Tumbler Ridge. I believe at the time, council's desire was to get the interest of the community about how big of lots they would want, what we should develop. Also along the lines of the Saddle Club, we've always thought about doing 5-acre lots out there because we could sell them without being serviced. And it seemed like there was some interest from the community to have property, rural property close to town. So that's where this is why we've gotten to this point where we're at, for at least for the Saddle Club and the 46-acre wood, was to expand upon that. So like specifically to the request from staff, I really appreciate the different things that the study would bring back to us: market analysis, infrastructure assessment. I think these things are all important for us to recognize, to come up with get a clear understanding of what does our community want. Can we reach the price points that our community is looking for? Because in the survey done quite some time ago, people weren't really wanting to spend $100,000 on rural property, which it may be if we have to service. They're looking for a cheaper price point. But the survey we put out, I don't think was really targeted directly towards that. So we have a lot of information, but I don't think it's really great information. So yeah, I think this is a good idea for us to go back out, get good, proper information so that we don't drop the ball on this, because seeing communities act as land developers or landowners can be a very slippery slope. So, thanks.
Councillor Gillick?
I appreciate you bringing that point up, Councillor Hoffman. I guess when I looked at it, I didn't think of it as specific to rural residential. And when I read further in, it's just asking for that $100,000 to take a comprehensive land development plan for future residential development. I think maybe where you got looking, the budget line item is specific to rural residential development. Because I would agree with you and Councillor Norbury, I'm not in the market, or I don't agree with the district being the ones to develop the land. Like, I think that has to be done by a developer. And I agree with you, we need to be looking at some housing that's maybe more, I know the right term, but I don't remember it, like more, like apartments. Townhouses. Density
housing.
Yes, density housing. So I would agree with you there. If it is how I read it to be, that it is for future residential development, not specific to rural, I am in support of this motion.
Okay. I got myself and Councillor Hoffman. So a couple of questions I have. I understand where Councillor Hoffman is making his comments from. So when we started the process in regards to the Saddle Club, again, there was a survey, but my other comments would be we're also still within the zoning bylaw. We're still working through that process. So I think we need to make sure that, I almost think we need to make sure the zoning bylaw is done before we process all this, to make sure that it fits within the zoning bylaw that we're using. We're still waiting for them to come back in regards to Settle Club because they had it marked as smaller acreages when we were saying, no, we don't want it from that because of having to supply water and sewer. So that'd be my concern there when we don't have the zoning bylaw done yet. And we're looking at doing a comprehensive land development plan. I'm not sure if we should be waiting till the zoning bylaw is done. I think that'll have to be answered by staff. Because my understanding, that's gone back. We are waiting for a draft plan to come back from the zoning bylaw before it goes out to get residents' input, and then it comes back for approval. So, I mean, we could still be looking at a few months here. It would be my concern. And the other one is, I just want to make sure that somewhere in the back room, in the back shelves, that we do not have, and we may have, but it may be outdated, a comprehensive land development plan already. I remember this coming forward at one other time, and maybe it was worded something else. I just want to make sure we don't have something like that on our cupboards in the back somewhere. I'm not sure if staff is prepared to answer any of that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Director of Economic Development, I believe, can address some of that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, there has definitely been work done over the years before my time at the district, for sure. I think that a big part of this would be disseminating all of that information and getting it into something that is project ready, I guess, is one of the big things. The other thing, I know that the budget line on here says rural residential, but I didn't have anywhere else that I could add that grant revenue onto at this point. But I do definitely picture this as a overall picture of mixed use, different densities. The other thing about the survey that I think about is if that was only sent out to residents, was it capturing the region's desire to possibly have an acreage in or around Tumbler Ridge? I've definitely heard it from outside of the community, that people are coming here, you know, using the backcountry and would love to have that space, but it's just not there yet. And as for the zoning bylaw, totally agree. By the time that this was even ready and put out to RFP and that whole process, I can't picture us being ready to get started on this until probably the new year. So I think that'll all go hand in hand.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the clarity. Councillor Hoffman, then Councillor Klitkash.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Norby, for a bit more background. I do appreciate that. And I also agree with Councillor Julick's point, already cleared up by our economic development staff. The other aspect of this that I wanted to throw out, and actually thank you, Mayor, as well, because that was another point of the our current bylaw. The one thing that I keep hearing in reference to this that I don't agree with is the asking our residents what they want. Our residents are here. If we're going to develop and grow, we need to bring from outside, whether that's Peace River or a larger expansion. I would like to know what mining families or miners individually would like to see in town if we're expanding those sorts of seats. Do we have to have a plan in case the mines don't work? Like, are we developing it just as a reactionary? Because I could tell you, I'd love the idea of rural property, but I also don't love the idea of a very large price tag for developing said property into what I want it to be. So I think we need to be asking the question of what would it take to entice people to move here more than what does the local population want? Because if you can have a house for $200,000, you're not going to spend $500,000 to build a slightly more custom house than what you have right now. I just don't see that happening. So don't know what's actually been said in the past, don't know what the history shows, but I think looking forward, we need to look, what do we need to do to bring people to live in Tumbler? And that would be partly housing and partly services and all that, and I'm hoping we're able to tie that together and answer that question next year. Thank you.
So just before I go to Councillor Klitkash, just some information there. We've actually lost some of our local residents in the past. That's why this rural thing came up. People were looking for that rural property due to the bigger units they're buying, whether it's toys or they want to have that little hobby farm. they end up finding that elsewhere, whether it would be closer to Grand Prairie. So we've lost the residents that have been here before. I think that's why we said how we've reached out to residents, is because those residents actually approached the district and were looking for that, and because they couldn't find it, they actually moved away from our community. So I agree with you. I think you have to look for what the outlook is for all population outside of the district, but also within the district. There is a lot of, to me, local residents right now, they're looking for bigger parcels, and we don't offer that at this point. So I think that offsets both for our local residents, but also to entice people to maybe move to Tumbler Ridge or buy that piece of property that staff had mentioned. So I'll go to Councillor Klickash and then back to Councillor Hoffman. Oh, he shut himself off.
Yes, Your Worship. The way I read this is that we're just planning to a certain area for development of different sizes of properties and of houses, right? So like the area between Wolverine and going down towards the road on the going out of town, Mackenzie, that area has been open there for 15 years that I know of, and it is ready for development. All the water and sewer and everything are there. So I can see that that's important to a developer to look at that and say, okay, I want to put something in here. You know, if we don't have it ready, they're not even going to come here. So you got to have the lots, 5 acre or larger lots for people to buy that want to have a little bigger lot, a little bigger house or whatever. If it's available, it's up to the developer to come in, hook up his water and sewer, and carry on with the development. Make up the lots and go forward from there. It's got nothing to do with the town as far as that's concerned. He's going to develop it. It's his money. So I think we have to have it available. And that's the way I read this, is that we're going to have it developable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just having the plans ready, I think that's what staff's
Yep.
looking to have, and
So-
that way the information's there, so it's shelf-ready
Right.
projects. If somebody does approach the district, they have it kind of drawn out.
Yep.
I mean, Councillor Hoffman?
Thank you, Mayor. And just wanted to concede your point. Yes, that's a very reasonable position to come from. I was not trying to suggest that the local population doesn't matter. It was more of it's very easy to say, I want this and I want that, but if it's not going to change the actual housing situation for the vast majority of our locals, I think bringing in is still the focus that we need to take. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, recommendations, unless somebody has something new.
One more thing.
Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. So on a separate note, specifically on the Saddle Club property, I know that the Saddle Club does have some infrastructure out there. When we're looking at this plan and what we're going to do out there, I think it's important for us to at least get involved with them to know what they value out in that property, and if we can work with them or give them first rights. And that's 10 steps down the line, but if we can give them first rights or something, a refusal for the property that they have infrastructure on there, I think that's important. Yeah, we'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Julik?
I'm just wondering, before the recommendations continue, if maybe we could talk to our CFO about B, or do we need to change that, ask for another line to be added rather than it read specifically to rural residential development, or is it okay for us to attach to that item?
Mr. Woodward?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would our Chief Financial Officer like to respond to that?
Sure. Right now, I'm just looking at what's going into the budget and doing a budget amendment with the current information on that. We could turn it down instead of and change the name a bit. What would council like it to be known as?
Councillor Julik?
I'm okay for it to still be an ECDEV special project. I just want to make sure that, I just know sometimes words can make the difference, and just that it's not specific to rural residential. Like, I'm fine with it being a special project. I just don't want it to be specific to rural residential. If that will be a hiccup in the future, if something were to happen to you, Miss, why am I drawing a blank on your last name, Natalie, but
Wiener.
Wiener. So, yeah, that's my concern.
So I guess would council be more happy to have it, instead of saying rural residential development be increased by the 100,000, to have it wording comprehensive land development plan for future residential development in Tumbler Ridge, have a line made for that? I guess that'd be my question, Mr. Woodward, can we just make that change?
I believe, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I believe that resolution would be appropriate because that's what we're discussing. And, sorry, go ahead, CFO. Yep.
Unfortunately, we only have limited space in our accounts. If there's a way to shorten it a little bit, it will fit into the system. I was thinking along the lines of residential development and leaving it as such.
Just delete the word rural.
Yep.
The other comment I'd like to make, Mr. Mayor, is that we are going to be meeting with CNUMA, and we're going to be discussing a multiple number of things with them. And so will we be talking about that planning situation with council at some point in time.
Okay, thank you. Do you need a motion in regards to that for changing it?
Yes, please.
Okay. Make a motion that we remove, oh no, actually, we might as well wait till the recommendations read, and then we'll just change it then. Make it easier, I think, on us, whoever reads it. Okay, any more discussion before we go to motions? Okay, Councillor Julik.
The council approves spending up to $100,000 from the Growing Communities Fund to undertake a comprehensive land development plan for future residential development in Tumbler Ridge.
Seconder, Councillor Hoffman. Discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Carried. Okay, number 3, Councillor Julik.
That the 2023 to 2027 5-year financial plan be amended as follows. That A, grant revenue be increased by $100,000, and B, that expenses to budget line item 5199 ECDEV special projects 1-251990-15-001 residential development be increased by $100,000.
Seconder, Councillor Norbury. Discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, moving on to schedule of meetings. Any concerns by council? Guess my only concern, Mr. Woodward, I've sent an email out, but my concern is tomorrow night's special meeting, budget meeting. Is our CFO in Zoom, or is she going to be in person for our first budget meeting?
She's going to be in Zoom at this point.
So I have concerns with Zoom. We went through this budget process in 2023 via Zoom, and I don't know how many times we had to take recesses to get paperwork printed because we didn't have it all in front of us. So I'm not sure how council feels in regards to budget process being via Zoom. To me, that's up to all of us. I'm not in favor of Zoom. I think when we have a budget schedule or calendar put in front of us, to me, it should be in person. But I think all council needs to weigh into that. I have issues with it. Councillor Julik?
I have to say my preference as well would be to have our CFO here in the room. I agree that it was periodically problematic through the other, like when we did the process before. I think there was multiple reasons for that. So I would like to see our schedule accommodate schedules that allow for the CFO to be in person with us.
Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. So personally, I have no preference, but seeing as how yourself, Councillor Julik, maybe other members of council would prefer in person, they feel more uncomfortable, I would prefer that we accommodate everyone, and that includes people that would prefer it in person. So I'd be happy to support us canceling it or moving it or what have you. Thanks.
Councillor Giselle?
I have to agree. It's really hard to do by Zoom, so I would prefer in person as well.
Okay. Thank you. I guess, Mr. Woodward, I'd like to know, I understand that we approved a budget schedule at a previous meeting. I was not aware that we were looking at doing Zooms. Are we able to defer this meeting to when our CFO is back in the community?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor and council, absolutely. It's not an issue at all. You just need to make a motion, cancel the September 6th meeting, and then we'll reschedule.
Okay, thank you. I'll put a motion on the floor to cancel the September 6th special meeting of council. Seconder? Councillor Clickash, discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and I'm gone then,
Yeah, that's all part of it.
so it'll have to be after that.
Okay, anything else in regards to scheduling meetings?
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No problem. Okay, moving on to any notice of motions. Councillor Hoffman?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Given our recent discussions with bylaws and dogs and other issues coming up, I would like to investigate the viability and cost of adding dog parks to the community.
Okay, we can bring that up at the first, once this meeting that's for tomorrow night was rescheduled, you can bring it up then if you want.
Okay.
Or you can do it as a notice of motion. I'm totally fine. It's totally up to you because it's your notice of motion.
Okay, I guess I said that wrong. So what's the proper terminology for calling it a notice of motion?
Yeah, no, and it's okay to do it as a notice of motion, but when we go through budget, we can add it to get a cost from
Okay.
or for some staff. It'll probably be quicker.
Oh, I would ask staff what would be easier for them if I do it as a notice of motion here or save it for the next special meeting. It's, I can go either way.
Mr. Woodward? So it's in regards to dog park.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor and Council. Councillor Hoffman, we actually have some of that information going forward into our budget.
Okay.
And so we'll make sure that we take that into consideration.
Okay, I'm good.
Is that good with you?
Yep,
Okay.
that's good.
Sorry about that, Councillor Hoffman.
No, no worries.
Any other notice of motions? Okay. Councillor's business. Thanks, Councillor Hoffman. Appreciate the update. It's good to see that you guys are progressing in regards to the new building. Hope to hear more on that once you guys get some information back. So, okay, any other councillor's business? Councillor Gillick?
Mostly I wanted to get some clarification, and you can tell me if this is out of order or not, but I'm wondering about the charges for sewer line tapping.
For what, sir?
So in Councillor Hoffman's report, he said would like to talk to the district about the charges for sewer line tapping. The existing plumbing needed upgrades for the new building. I'm just curious as to what that is, or is that a after meeting question? Okay.
I don't believe so, unless it's in there closed. Councillor Hoffman?
As I understand it, that there was a previous structure there, and that I don't know if it was just the code changed or what the deal was, but it was not sufficient for a new structure. And the path of decision-making was a little convoluted at the time of who was deciding what was going to happen when and who was paying for it was less than clear. And there was an outstanding bill, I think it was in the range of about $15,000, and it just wants to clarity on who is actually responsible and how that's going to be done. There's no animosity or hard feelings. It's just an outstanding issue that just should be dealt with and completed, and that's all that was brought up, that whether that becomes a district responsibility because it wasn't done properly in the first place, or it needed to be done anyways, or is it part of the new structure of the building? I hope that clarifies.
And I'm just assuming on that they've reached out to staff, or will be reaching out to staff?
I will follow up to see if they are waiting on us or if they're going to do it themselves, but it's just more of an update on the issue that's on mind. But I will bring it up specifically if in case they haven't already.
Thank you. Anything else as councillor's business? Okay, I got a couple of things. Obviously, staff's added the one report in regards to meeting with the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure here in Town Hall. I updated council previously. It sounds like, I don't want to say it'll be mid-September, end of September when they start doing the brush clearing, but it'll happen once they downgrade the fire danger. They're just concerned with sparks coming off rocks. Last couple of weeks been pretty slow. I've had some discussion with Chief Wilson. I think we're going to try and set up a face-to-face meeting with council as a whole, West Moberly's council and this council. So I'll keep you informed on what dates we can make work. Northern Lights College has reached out to have a meeting with council. I don't believe it's a delegation. I believe we're looking at having just an overview from Northern Lights College. I believe staff will be sending an email out to see who's available for that. So it's just, they're looking at doing something in some of these remote Northern Lights College areas. And I think that's something that I know Councilor Norbury and myself attended UBCM last year. And that was one of the pushes, is trying to get Northern Lights Colleges more involved in offering more available classes and stuff within our community, but also the other smaller colleges. And it looks like that's something that they're taking on. So hopefully we'll hear about that coming. Okay, anything else from council? Okay. Oh, is that, okay, I was like, what? Question answer period. Any questions emailed to you, Mr. Woodward?
None at this time.
Okay. Take a resolution to close. Councillor Dussault?
That the September 5th, 2023 regular council meeting be closed to the public according to Section 91C, G, and K of the Community Charter to permit discussion about C, labor relations or other employee relations, and G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality, and K, information that is prohibited or information that if were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under Section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Seconder. Councillor Noxana, all in favor? Carried. 5-minute recess. Because I think it's going to be labor and I don't want to do that.